So as I said, we'll now start with a fresh chapter, that is protein targeting. All right. And this is the usual disclaimer that this presentation is primarily meant for you students, and it should not be used for any other purpose, copied or posted. Some of the pictures in the presentation have been taken from public domain website or popular books to make the topic easy to understand. Credit definitely goes to the original publisher, right? Now, we have studied now that the site of protein synthesis, all type of protein synthesis, is ribosome, and they are located in cytoplasm. Site of protein synthesis, all type of protein synthesis is ribosome in cytoplasm. But you know this also, that proteins are parts or components of various cellular organelles, particularly in a eukaryotic cell, like chloroplast if it is a plant cell, or mitochondria, or Golgi apparatus, or lysosomes, nucleus. These are the various cellular organelles. In plasma membrane is a destination to lots of proteins. You know, plasma membrane, they are made up of lipids and proteins. So proteins, all types of proteins in the cell, they are synthesized on ribosome. Whether it is a plasma membrane protein, whether it is a nuclear protein, whether it is a lysosomal protein, or a protein which is a part of Golgi apparatus or chloroplast or mitochondria, all of them are going to be synthesized on ribosome. Okay. Some proteins, they function as enzymes in the cytoplasm itself. Okay. Some proteins, all these proteins, some of them are enzymes. They may be located in mitochondria, they may be located in chloroplast, they may be located in lysosomes, or they may be there in the nucleus. You know, what are the enzymes present in the nucleus? You know, DNA polymerase is present over there, RNA polymerase is present over there. There are some structural proteins, for example, histones are present in nucleus. Plasma membrane, you know, majority of the proteins are structural proteins only. Okay. Some proteins in the cytoplasm, they also function as enzymes. If you have to give one example is that of enzymes of glycolysis, which takes part in the cytoplasm. And some others, they are there working as enzymes in other cellular organelles. I given you some examples. Some proteins are exported out of the cell. They are synthesized and then they are secreted out of the cell. One good example of protein being exported, being secreted out of the cell is your digestive enzymes. They are synthesized in the pancreatic cells, and as and when required, they are exported, they are secreted out of those cells into the stomach, where they carry out the digestion of the ingested food. So you have all this nitty-gritty, that they're synthesized on ribosomes, then they are part of various organelles, they function as enzyme in the cytoplasm itself, some of them are exported. Okay. The question, that big question that comes is, how are they transported to various destinations? After being synthesized on ribosomes, how do they move to their ultimate destination? So the process by which proteins synthesized on ribosomes are transported to their ultimate destination is called as protein targeting. I hope you have understood the definition, you have understood the meaning of protein targeting. So you know that they are synthesized on ribosome, but how do they move to their ultimate destination, be it plasma membrane, be it nucleus, or lysosome, or Golgi, or mitochondria, or chloroplast, or they are there in the cytoplasm itself working as enzyme, or some of them are exported. How does it happen? So the process by which it all happens, you know, collectively can be called as protein targeting. So as I said earlier, that we started learning about this very recently in the sense in last 35 years or so, and we have some good insight into targeting to some of the destinations. So you have these proteins, you know, synthesized in the cytoplasm on the ribosomes, and then they go to their various destinations. So these are the various destinations. Some of them will remain in the cytoplasm, will go to nucleus, peroxisomes, mitochondria, then nucleus, lysosomes, plasma membrane, like that. All right, so basically there are two types of ribosomes. I didn't tell you about this earlier, but now I'm telling you that there are two types of ribosomes. Those which are free in the cytoplasm and those which are bound to endoplasmic reticulum. So endoplasmic reticulum, the surface remains dotted. You call it as rough endoplasmic reticulum. Those dots are nothing, but those dots are the bound ribosomes, giving the rough appearance to the endoplasmic reticular membrane. Okay, this is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? So you have two types of ribosomes basically in the cytoplasm, those which are free and those which are bound. Bound to whom? Bound to the endoplasmic reticular membrane. Okay. So the question is, what is the difference between the two? And the answer is there is no difference. There is no difference. Huh? Otherwise, I would have told you earlier also that ribosome structurally and functionally, they are same. There is only of one type of ribosome, structurally and functionally in the eukaryotic cell. Okay. So what type of protein they are synthesizing will decide whether the ribosome will remain free in the cytoplasm or will get bound to the endoplasmic reticulum. Please understand that these two types of ribosomes, they are same, they are identical structurally and functionally. There is no difference whatsoever. So what decides whether the ribosome will remain free or whether the ribosome will get bound to the endoplasmic reticulum? It is decided by the kind of protein, the type of protein it is synthesizing. Okay. For example, so free ribosomes, those ribosomes which are free in the cytoplasm, they will undertake synthesis of soluble proteins which are there in the cytoplasm itself. Examples, enzymes of glycolytic pathway, proteins of nucleus, all proteins of nucleus, DNA polymerase, RNA polymerase, histones, all of them will be synthesized by free ribosomes. Proteins which are there in the mitochondria, all mitochondrial proteins, peroxisomes proteins, peroxisome is also a cellular organelle. Okay, it plays a very important role in the detoxification. So, and chloroplast proteins, if it is a plant cell, all these proteins are going to be synthesized by ribosomes which are free. Or I should put it the other way, that if the ribosome is synthesizing any of these three classes of protein, three broad classes of protein, then that ribosome is going to be free ribosome. It will not get attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. And if the ribosome is synthesizing any of these three categories, proteins which are lysosomal protein, those which are secretory, means which are exported out of the cell, and they are part of the plasma membrane. These three major categories of proteins, lysosome is a major destination in the cell. So these three major categories of protein, if the ribosome is synthesizing these three categories of protein, then that ribosome should get bound to the endoplasmic reticulum. Please understand the difference. So what decides whether the ribosome will remain free or the ribosome will get bound? It will be decided by the protein it is synthesizing, right? So how does it know what kind of protein it is synthesizing? The question that comes in mind is, how does ribosome decide whether it is a lysosomal protein, secretory protein, or plasma membrane protein, or it is a soluble protein, nuclear protein, or mitochondrial protein? So the answer is the first few amino acids. say 25-30 amino acids after the synthesis. Till that time, the ribosome is like free only. Okay. So first 25-30 amino acids, they decide whether it will remain free or it will get bound to the endoplasmic reticulum. Those 25-30 amino acids, they constitute what is called as the signal sequence. The signal sequence. Okay, basically the signal sequence is anywhere between 13 to 36 residues long. So from N terminus, the first 25-30 amino acids, so you understand that protein synthesis takes place from N terminus to C terminus. Okay, so the first 20-30 amino acids synthesized by ribosome, if they make what is called as a signal sequence, then that particular ribosome will go and get bound to endoplasmic reticulum. Now, what is the characteristic of this signal sequence? The N terminus always contain a positively charged amino acid. Okay, it has got certain characteristic features. It has got a positively charged amino acid. There may be one, there may be two. And what are the positively charged amino acid? You have lysine, you have arginine. So at the N terminus, you will have either one or two positively charged amino acids. The central portion is a stretch of hydrophobic amino acid. What does it mean? It means that amino acids with hydrophobic R groups. Okay, those amino acids will form the central core. This is the central core, and there may be as many as 8 to 12 hydrophobic amino acids. And then there is a cleavage site. After some 25-30 amino acids, it varies from protein to protein. The length of the signal sequence will vary. So there is a cleavage site, and there is an enzyme called signal peptidase. It will cleave here. Okay. So what does it mean? That means that signal sequence is not a part of the mature protein. It doesn't become part of a mature protein. But in some cases, in some proteins, signal sequence, they have internal signal sequence, means it is not cleaved and it remains a part of the mature protein. Please understand, in majority of the proteins, this signal sequence, after its job is over, what is its job, we'll understand. So after the job is over, it will be cleaved. It will not be a part of the mature protein. So there is a enzyme called signal peptidase. It will cleave it and mature protein will be freed. But in some cases, there are internal signal sequences and they are not cleaved and they remain a part of the mature protein. Okay, so these signal sequences, they are in the cytoplasm, it is identified by what are called as signal recognition particles. Signal recognition particles. SRP in short, signal recognition particle. So what are these signal recognition particles? They basically serve as coupling component, coupling factor between the protein synthesizing machinery, that is ribosome in the cytoplasm, and protein translocating machinery in the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so these SRP, they will serve as a coupling factor, coupling component between the ribosome and this, which is a protein synthesizing machinery, and protein translocating machinery in the endoplasmic reticulum. What are they? Basically, they are ribonucleoproteins. So you are familiar with this word now, ribonucleoprotein. Okay, we have come across this word several other times also. So what does it mean? That means they are made up of two components. One is RNA and one is protein. Molecular mass is around 325 kilodalton. The RNA component is shown over here, 300 nucleotide long. And there are as many as 6 different types of polypeptides. 9 kilodalton, 14 kilodalton, 19 kilodalton, 54 kilodalton, 68 kilodalton, 78 kilodalton. These are the molecular masses of the polypeptides of the SRP. What do? They are responsible for recognizing the signal sequence. We have just understood what are the characteristics of the signal sequence, and now there is a component there in the cytoplasm itself which will be recognizing this signal sequence. It is this 54 kilodalton protein, this polypeptide. It is basically involved in identifying, recognizing the signal sequence. Okay, all others, what do? They sterically, till the time protein is translocated in the endoplasmic reticulum, what do? The remaining polypeptide chain, 9, 14, 19, 16, and 78 kilodalton polypeptides, what do? They sterically temporarily inhibit the protein elongation. Till the time protein is successfully translocated in the endoplasmic reticulum, till that time protein elongation will be suspended. Okay, it's a temporary suspension. Till that time, that protein is properly translocated into the ER lumen. Till that time, this protein elongation is going to be suspended. So the remaining polypeptides are involved in that. 54 kilodalton polypeptide will be involved in identifying the signal sequence. Okay, so we have now accounted for the functions of these polypeptides. But what is the function of this RNA, which is a component of SRP? So we'll understand what is the function of this RNA also. Okay, so on the ER membrane, you have what are called as SRP receptors. Signal recognition particle receptors. They are located where? They are located on the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum. And they are basically made up of two subunits. There is an alpha subunit which is 69 kilodalton. Alpha subunit which is 69 kilodalton. And there is a beta subunit which is 30 kilodalton. There are two subunits, alpha and beta, 69 kilodalton and 30 kilodalton respectively. So signal recognition particle now attached to a signal sequence which is being synthesized by a ribosome. This entire complex will come and dock. Dock means it will rest on the SRP receptors. Okay, so binding of SRP, signal recognition particle, and SRP receptor is by ionic interaction. Okay, what is meant by this ionic interaction? This alpha subunit has got positively charged amino acids. Alpha subunit of the SRP receptor has got positively charged amino acid. You have histidine, you have arginine, you have lysine. So these are positively charged amino acids. So it is ample of those positively charged amino acids. And we have just seen that SRP, one of the components is RNA. And RNA being a nucleic acid, because of the presence of phosphate groups, it is negatively charged. So with the help of negative charges of the SRP and positive charges of the alpha subunit of the SRP receptor, SRP will dock on SRP receptor and the binding will take place because of ionic interactions. Okay, so this is a picture now. So you have these ribosomes. I told you earlier, we have discussed it, that these two subunits are in dynamic equilibrium. This is the small subunit, this is the large subunit. Okay, they unite, both of them associate. This is the AUG, means the initiation codon, and the first few amino acids have been added, the one in red. This is the newly synthesized polypeptide chain. And this, if this is a signal sequence, if this shows characteristics of signal sequence, then it will be identified by this green is SRP. This green is SRP. So 54 kilodalton polypeptide of SRP, with the help of that polypeptide, it will identify the sequence. Okay. And then with the help of RNA, this is SRP receptor. This SRP receptor, it is located on the membrane of the ER. This is the ER membrane. ER membrane. Okay, so they are located on the membrane, and with the help of RNA, which is negatively charged, and alpha subunit, which is positively charged, this SRP will come and dock over here. I think the picture is clear now. Now, adjacent to the SRP on the endoplasmic reticular membrane, adjacent to SRP receptor on the ER membrane, there is a translocation machinery. What is meant by this translocation machinery? It is a multi-subunit assembly of integral membrane, transmembrane proteins, and peripheral membrane proteins. So it's a multi-subunit assembly of two types of proteins. Some of them are transmembrane and some of them are peripheral proteins, extrinsic and intrinsic proteins. People have been able to identify some of the components of this translocation machinery, but still we are learning. So what are these? This translocation machinery, these are protein conducting channels gated by enzyme signal peptidase. There is a membrane bound enzyme. I told you earlier that this is the enzyme which is responsible for cleaving the signal sequence, right? So it's a membrane bound enzyme. It also gates. It also, what you can say, is present as a gate on this protein conducting channel. The diameter of the channel is around 15 angstrom. The being synthesized protein, I told you that till the time this translocation takes place, the protein synthesis, protein elongation rather, has been temporarily suspended. The being synthesized protein will pass through this protein conducting channel, and will get into the lumen of the ER. So proteins being synthesized on ribosome, which were free because they were synthesizing a protein which was meant for lysosome or plasma membrane or secretory. So first few amino acids, they constituted signal sequence identified by SRP. SRP docks on SRP receptor on endoplasmic reticulum, and next to SRP receptor on ER membrane, you have translocation machinery through which it will be threaded into the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so till this point, we have understood it in the previous frame. So next to SRP receptor, this is the SRP receptor. SRP has come and docked over here. Next to it, there is a translocation machinery. This is the translocation machinery. Translocation machinery. And as I told you, multi-subunit assembly made up of proteins contributed by the plasma membrane. Some of them are intrinsic protein, some of them are extrinsic protein, and they together form a transmembrane tunnel, a protein conducting channel through which the being synthesized protein will get into the lumen of the endoplasmic. This is the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum, right? And it is a gated tunnel. So it is being gated by whom? By a signal peptidase, an enzyme which is a membrane bound enzyme. Okay, so question that comes is, because the signal sequence, it is tightly bound to the SRP. So for its translocation, it is necessary that SRP loosens the grip. So there is a GTP-GDP cycle which plays a role in this particular process. So it is important that SRP frees the attached protein. Okay, unless SRP frees it, it cannot be translocated across the ER membrane. So the alpha subunit of the SRP receptor, it shuttles between GDP and GTP4. Binding of SRP signal peptide triggers exchange of GTP for GDP at the alpha subunit of SRP receptor. Binding of SRP carrying the signal sequence to the SRP receptor triggers what? Triggers an exchange of GTP for GDP. Originally, there is a GDP at the alpha subunit. As soon as the SRP comes and docks over it, this GDP will be exchanged for a GTP. In GTP form, it has a very high affinity for the SRP. In the GTP form, it has very high affinity for the SRP. So this allows release of signal peptide from the grip of the SRP. SRP comes in very close, intimate contact with the SRP receptor, because the SRP receptor, there has been an exchange of GTP for GDP, and this exchange has brought in a change in its affinity for the SRP. So it tightly grips the SRP. In that process, the grip of SRP on the attached protein loosens, and this protein can be translocated across the translocation machinery, the protein conducting channel. Now, once in the lumen, in the ER lumen is a hub of metabolic and biochemical activities. Lots of metabolic activities and lots of biochemical activities are going on in the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. Another important task in the lumen is proteins are properly folded before exported from the ER. It is the responsibility of the ER to make sure that proteins are properly folded before they leave ER lumen. Okay. Many proteins will undergo post-translational modifications. What is meant by post-translational? Post-translation means after the translation is over, after the synthesis of protein is over, many proteins will undergo some modifications. Those modifications are termed as post-translational modifications. One of the major post-translational modification is glycosylation, means addition of oligosaccharide or addition of carbohydrate units to the protein chain, to the polypeptide chain. So making them as glycoproteins. So majority of the proteins will acquire their carbohydrate moieties, carbohydrate residues, either in the endoplasmic reticulum or some of them will require in the Golgi apparatus also. All right. So please understand, in the lumen, proteins are folded properly. Yeah. Lots of quality checks are applied to make sure that proteins are properly folded. And then after proper folding, after undergoing whatever post-translational modifications they have to undergo, they will be exported out of the ER lumen. Okay, so proteins are not folded immediately in the ER lumen. As the synthesis is still going on. So unless the synthesis is completed, they will not be folded, because for folding they require complete synthesis of the protein. Moreover, protein concentration in the ER lumen is very high. You have large number of proteins being translocated, and they are at the different stages of translocation. So, you have, for example, this is the ER lumen. So you have large number of proteins being translocated to various stages. You see the length, varying length. They are being synthesized here by the ribosome, and they are being translocated into the lumen, and they are at different stages of translocation. So one problem is that this particular polypeptide chain may intermingle with this. This polypeptide chain may intermingle with this. These two may intermingle, or these two may intermingle. And if they intermingle with each other, because they are very close to each other, it is going to be very difficult to fold them. So till protein synthesis is completed, Okay, it is very important that these being translocated, being synthesized polypeptide chains are kept separately and they're kept in unfolded form. So it is the responsibility of what are called as chaperone proteins. Chaperone is the new word that I am introducing. So there are chaperone proteins in the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. It is their responsibility to keep this protein in unfolded form and do not allow them to intermingle with each other and do not allow them to intermingle with each other. Please understand, it is the responsibility of the chaperone proteins to make sure that they don't mix with each other and till the time they get the synthesis over, they are remain unfolded. These two responsibilities are carried out by chaperone proteins. Chaperones also have slow ATPase activity. They have slow ATPase activity. ADP chaperones in the ADP form, they typically have very high affinity for unfolded protein. In the ADP form, please understand, they have high affinity for the unfolded proteins. And in the ATP form, they have high affinity for the folded protein. They have low affinity for the unfolded protein. ER lumen also contains proteins and factors required for folding. Other proteins and factors which might be required for folding, they are also present in the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. Two important enzymes, protein disulfide isomerases, which are responsible for the formation of disulfide bridges, and peptidyl proryl isomerases, which are responsible for cis-trans configuration of proline. They are also there in the endoplasmic reticulum and they play important role in protein folding. So that's all I think I have in this particular lecture for you. Thank you very much. We'll continue this aspect. We'll carry forward beyond this particular point in the next lecture. Thank you.